I'm joined now by someone who is perhaps these days better known for her work as a life coach and a glass artist. However, before all that, she worked extensively across a whole range of shows, both at the BBC and later on in sitcoms as she started to go freelance. So I'd like to introduce Doctor Who production assistant Valerie Letley. How are you?
I'm doing really well, thank you, in our strange lockdown world. This for all posterity will be an interview that took place in lockdown. There we go.
But you're managing to make the most of it, because as I say, more recently you've done all sorts of other things outside of production.
Yes, I kind of retired from the business about 10 years ago and moved to the country, and that was a good break to change things. I've got a lot of garden to look after in the greenhouse that's quite new to me, so that's taking up a lot of my time, as is the glass. I wasn't able to do my workshops where I was bringing glass into the greenhouse, so people were actually making glass items with me in my new greenhouse, and all set up, people signed up, had to cancel it, so there you go. But it will all start up again later, and in the meantime, instead of having people doing glass in my greenhouse, I've got tomatoes and flowers and goodness knows what. So yeah, it's keeping me very, very busy.
Oh, well, brilliant.
Well, I'll show you this. I got this out the kiln yesterday. I thought it was a bit Frontios-like or something, you know, a little bit strange, little strange world, a little bit Doctor Who-ish, I thought. There you go.
Oh, that's fantastic, yes.
So that's kept me busy.
Good. Well, I wanted to take you back to 1983 when you first encountered Doctor Who, but I was wondering, what does a production assistant do or did?
Production assistant, back in the day, there's a lot of things that they still do now as script supervisors, because that was where the title sort of split. And the core things that you do is you have a stopwatch around you, you're timing everything, you time the script, you're assisting the director greatly, you're a good team with the director, you're in charge of the script to that extent that any rewrites, you're the ones keeping those going in terms of changing them. You don't change content yourself, you're literally typing them in, making sure everybody's got any changes like that. So doing that. On location, you're doing continuity and you're doing all the film editor notes. So every single shot, every slate, everything, you're making notes of, and those notes, all the scene details, everything. If you've got more than one camera working at a time, you've got your camera A and your camera B, and you're saying exactly what's there. Because basically the editor has got, whether it's a film editor or VT editor, has got pictures, streams of pictures on tape, and then the notes, your script, which is the script page of that scene, alongside all the tram lines that you write as they do a take. What's the slate number? How far did we go? How many on one particular take? On one particular setup? How many takes did you take? You know, so literally all of that. Might be easy if I just show you a tram line. Well, actually, what have I got here? This is the BBC film continuity note. There we go. So it's all done in a very modern way now. The people doing it today would be doing it on laptops and emailed off instantly. But mine was, in fact, I'd ended up doing mine twice over, because I do very scribbly notes and I put all sorts of little continuity notes and all sorts on there. And then the perfectionist in me wanted the editor to have pristine notes, so I'd write them all out again. So then you'd circle the take and say which was the one that the director wanted the most, or whether it was to split them between. So whatever. So you're very much having to know exactly what's going on. So you'd mark up the script as well, and you'd have those notes, and that's what the editor would be working with. So they'd know exactly how many of anything they've got of a section of dialogue. How many ways have they got that? Just one? Okay. Whoa, that's it. Better be right, better be good. But yeah, so that's that. And then in the studio, while the rehearsals are ongoing, the director is creating their camera script. They're working out, if you've got 4 or 5 cameras, they know what they can play with. and they're working out exactly what the look of it is. They're chopping it up in their minds. They write, and directors have different ways of writing, and you have to be able to read, a bit like doctors sometimes. Can you read their writing? What are they trying to say? So at the beginning, you're trying to understand their shorthand for things, and then you get in the way of it. And then you're typing that up and creating the scripts. The rehearsal script becomes a camera script. And they're like little Bibles, really. They're what everybody looks for. They need it. You can't do it without the script. So, but one of the really important things before you even start, before it's even sent out as a script to the crew or the artists, is script breakdown, which is the synopsis of every scene. And that's the bit I enjoyed the most, because it made you have to concentrate on the nuts and bolts of every scene. What's going on in this scene? And sometimes, if there were questions for me, I knew there'd be questions as the artists or makeup, so it was one of those. It had to make sense to me. I had to be able to encapsulate the key elements of that scene. So I'd read the scene and I'd close it and I'd go, so what just happened in that scene? What do we need to convey? So that in a nutshell. But also then you'd be listing every single artist, any props, any special effects, anything that. So if the special effects people, they're going, so where's that scene? What's that page number? So it would have the page. Literally, it was everything stripped together, one after the other. And I do know, because artists have told me, that when that arrived, that they would go to the breakdown. There was one particular artist who said, I'd just go straight to your breakdown. I'd read all that just so that I knew what it was all about and I knew how much I was in it. So that was, the breakdown was a Bible within a Bible sort of thing. So and was incredibly useful. And that would be revamped and rejigged for things like especially Doctor Who, where you recorded out of sequence, where you would do chunks. That was the most challenging thing about drama, and doing 4 episodes. So it wasn't just like an episode of Juliet Bravo, which is where I came into the BBC as a production assistant, a production secretary. So you would have 1 episode. And yes, when you're in the studio, you might do, if there was a bedroom scene or a sitting room, you might then, just rattle those off. So you could do things, you'd record them out of order because you could. But when you've got 4 episodes of one storyline, and you're going to do all the interior of the TARDIS or all the tunnels and everything, it's like you've been given 4 packs of cards, you've shuffled the entire lot, you pick one out and go, okay, so where are we? What's this all about? And so those little synopses were incredibly helpful. And because I was still very new at it, but I thought it was a good discipline anyway, I used to commute. I lived in the suburbs in South London, and I'd leave on the tube, Shepherd's Bush, and I would be, in my mind, I would be going, so, okay, what's the storyline of episode 1? Whether it's Frontios or Mawdryn, Undead or whatever. And I would literally, oh, hang on, no, you're getting confused there. And I go, so what's, just so that, when I got to be on location or wherever, I absolutely knew where within the whole story it sat. Just my own sense of I felt I needed to know that. Probably a bit OTT, but it helped to ground me. But as I say, it was very early days for me. I joined very early at the BBC. I was fortunate enough to almost immediately go straight into being a producer's secretary on Juliet Bravo, and then The Chinese Detective with Terry Williams. So I knew Threshold and Union House, which was on Shepherd's Bush Green. So that's where I was, and I was fortunate enough that because we were recording in Pebble Mill, the studio element was for Juliet Bravo was at Pebble Mill. They said, well, as a secretary, you need to go up there as well. There wasn't a massive amount for me to do out of my office on a studio day. So I said, can I go and sit in the gallery? Would that be all right? There was a spare seat next to the PA, because in the gallery, probably know, you've got the director in the middle, flanked by your vision mixer on one side and the PA on the other, and then you've got your technical bod further around. In those days, they'd be run VT and all of that. They'd be on the phone to the people down in the bells, running the VT up. And so I sit on the other side, and sometimes they might have a second stopwatch, which they'd let me use. So I was just soaking it all up, how they were doing, what was their PA's style, and I learnt so much from being with different PAs. So, and I just loved that role. So I would take a script that would come in, and I being the secretary, I'd be one of the first before even a team had been assigned. And one of the things I wanted to do was do that synopsis. Can I do that synopsis? And then compare it, later on to what do they do? So it was important. I just loved the idea of being close to the team. They were really a strong unit. You could see that. There was the director, the PA, the production manager, and the AFM in those days, the assistant floor manager. And that was the core team of 4. And being the secretary and with the producer, we'd sort of turn up every now and then on location or whatever. But it was like, the action's happening there, and I want to be part of the action. So I really wanted to be a PA. So as soon as that came out, the notices, I applied for it. And I think I was fortunate that I'd had that experience in the studio. I think it helped me. So I got the job about a year later, which I think I was very lucky. And then I did my training, which was like 4 or 6 weeks training. And then you were sent out as a trainee. You weren't let loose on anything on your own. So you were learning. I was a stooge to Paul Daniels' magic show. When at rehearsal rooms, you have a contestant or whatever they are. And that was me. Sometimes. So I was learning on the hoof and learning from the best PAs. I think the BBC PAs were just brilliant. And then I got married, disappeared off, and came back and joined the second, because they'd had 2 intakes. So I then had to join the second intake of PAs because the others had returned and done theirs during my time when I was on my honeymoon. So I then joined the second lot. So I got to meet all the PAs from that year's training, which was rather nice. And at the end of that, another 4 weeks or whatever, that was our time. We were then officially to be let loose. So it was like that nervous day where it's like, right, we're now going to be placing you. Okay, and Valerie, you're going to Doctor Who. So it was just, what? Sending me my first ever job to Doctor Who. Oh my goodness. So yeah, and one thing I do remember, there we were at Cockfosters. I remember catching the tube all the way to Cockfosters, getting to that location with the school, and everyone's in there. We had must have been just a moment or two before a scene rehearsal, and there was Peter Davison, and he just said to me, "So what have you done before this?" And I had to tell him, and I think his face kind of, I don't know what his face did, but it was what he said to me. I will never forget. He went, "Baptism by fire." It was like, sure is. So as I say, there was a lot going on. There was a lot to do. There was a lot of location work there. So that threw me in the deep end. I do remember questioning my ability. Writing up my notes on the tube coming back from Cockfosters, and I think there was like a tear rolling down. It's like, I don't know, I can do this. This is just massive. Anyway, we got through it, and then that was it. So I think I started telling you about what does a PA do. I think we kind of moved away and all the way round, and oh dear, I've been to the other side of the world and back. So yeah.
So
I don't even know. I'm telling you the rest of what a PA does. Because then there's usually you're into the editing and you're there with all your notes. But again, that would depend on the director. Do they want you, or do they just want you to give them the notes? I think the thing about being a PA, be flexible. If you've got and for me, it was really important. I remember saying this in my interview, because they said, what would happen if you worked with a difficult person? And I said, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. because I knew that was the thing about it. You are making that program for a fixed amount of time, that you need to do the best that you can for that director, because he's holding it all together. So it's not about me, it's about the director, and you being flexible enough to work to the way that's going to help them the most. I think that got me the job, don't you? It was just a reality. I just had to try and make that happen. Yeah.
So was Peter Moffat, your first Who director, supportive for your first production assistant job?
He was lovely. He really was lovely. They told him that I hadn't done it before. He went, "Oh, we'll be fine, won't we?" He was really, yeah, that I do remember. He was very self-sufficient. I would say he's very self-sufficient. I think he just went about doing it on location and everything, and he assumed I would be there making the notes, and I was, and it was pretty relaxed, actually, in a tense way for me, but he was great. I remember him, yeah, he was lovely, yeah. And I remember at one point that he was working from home, and I think, for whatever reason, I don't know whether I had to go and see him, I just went around to him, he said, "Come round," and I was like, "Oh, I'm going out of office, in office time, I'm being paid to go and visit him in his home," and, he was just so relaxed, and "What was the question, darling?" and, sort it out. That was lovely. So, yeah, I just have fond memories of him being really quite a chilled guy. Yeah.
And the first episode of Mawdryn Undead is all location based, and then after that it's primarily studio. So did that sort of help you again get a grip with the two different aspects of filming?
It was when you're going on to film and on location. It is a nice way of getting to know the crew and getting to know the artists and everything. I have to say that I haven't actually made a mental note that having said I studied this, I didn't realise that quite so much of it was all on film. I don't think I kind of got my head today when I watched it the other day when you said I'm going to interview you. I said, "Oh no, right, okay, get the old DVDs out, unwrap the cellophane, actually put them on, revisit them." and yeah, a trip down memory lane. So there was a lot of location. You're right, there was a lot of location, but there was also the studio where I think the Colonel's rooms were in the studio, and bits and pieces. You just get on with it. It's fine. You do what you need to do. The continuity stands alone, whether you're going from a scene to a scene on location or a scene to the studio. It's all it all needs to be noted, so it will all flow. I'm not even sure whether I've answered your question. Anyway. Move on.
So after this baptism of fire, your first Doctor Who, was Frontios a little bit more comfortable to come back to then, because you sort of knew how the show worked?
Yeah, but you don't know what script's going to arrive. You just know, oh, you're going back to Doctor Who again. Okay, because it's tiring. I found it very tiring, very hard work. And this one, I realised that being all studio made it even more hard work for me, because when you go on location, if you think about it, you've just got a rehearsal script, and it's not until the director is doing those shots that element of it turning into a camera script is happening. It's evolving. So I'm creating it literally, as I say, I'm writing up the notes, I'm marking it all up, and then it goes to the editor. When you're making a camera script, everything's been rehearsed, everything's been tied down into a camera script, which means everything's got to be typed. And who's doing that everything? Moi! So there was no let up. It was every single moment of being a studio meant it was me typing, and it just went on forever. In fact, I do remember that was the reason that I needed to work into the night, and the security guard basically throwing me out. He and it was like I had to plead with him to let me stay longer, because it's like, if I don't get this script finished, it doesn't go to be printed. If it doesn't go to be printed, there's nothing to be literally, and there's camera cards to do, etc. So, you know, it's like, as if there's not enough to do, I've now got to beg to be able to stay and work late. And I think and again, being new to it, I mean, if that happened to me now, I would be stamping my feet. I would be on the phone. I would be going, what's going on? Who's making the you know, what is the BBC all about? It's not making programmes. Can you just help me here? But no, I was this little newbie, scared of everything, you know, and knowing that I had this tranche of work to do. So that's an interesting memory.
But of course, all of this would have been a time without computers. You'd all have been typing by hand. So
not only have I got this huge volume of work in typing up the camera the camera scripts for 4 episodes they were shot over two different periods with rehearsals in between, was that did I have a computer? No laptop, no mobile phone. You remember, there's nothing like that. Technology, what is technology? We were recording on 2-inch wide tapes, and we had 16mm film, you know, and did I have an electric typewriter? No. Who had the electric typewriters? Human resources, well, they were called personnel in those days. I believe they had electric typewriters. I had a manual typewriter, ding, 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 doing those camera cards. You've got about 7 spaces between each one, ding, 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 ding. Oh my word, these memories that are coming back to me. So it was hard, it's a lot of work, but it was great. Oh, it was the best of times, she says. It was, I loved it. I feel very, very fortunate, I have to say, very fortunate. And I'm so pleased and proud to be associated with Doctor Who. I mean, I would never put my hand up and go, yeah, what, just train, throw me into Doctor Who, I'm up for it, yeah. But I loved Peter Davison. I really, it was like, oh, how lovely to be working with Peter Davison. He wouldn't know that, of course. Never told him. So, but I was very, you know, sort of starry-eyed still. You know, it was a wonderful thing. And that's why I wanted to get into television. I wanted to be working with wonderful people who are so good at their profession, and I love drama. I absolutely adored drama and music, and I just wanted to be where it was all being made. I saw it on a box in the corner of the sitting room. It's like, I want to be there. I want to be where it's at, and I made it happen. So that was good.
So Doctor Who had thrown at you script changes, studio location, CSO, supporting artist, monsters. Did that then particularly prepare you well for other shows then?
Oh, for sure. But what it prepared me for hard graft. It's like, I remember it was after I'd done my second stint with Ron Jones, who was lovely. He was a different character, but we ended as friends. I think he was a bit nervous of me being so new. I think I unsettled him a little, but I think we pulled it out the bag. I think he was fine. You know, he got all the notes he needed. He managed to put the programme together. I think it was okay. So distracting myself again. But at the end of that, I was feeling pretty tired, and they said to me, so, you know, okay, we've got to think about where you're going to go next. Is there anywhere you fancy? Because I said, just give me a break from drama. I just needed a break from drama. So I said, what do you fancy? I said, LE, let me go to LE, you know, happy days of Paul Daniels' magic show. Oh, let's go and do a bit of, you know, singing and dancing, soft shoe shuffle, whatever, I don't know. They said, yeah, okay, you can go to LE, that's great. So I turned up, and it's like, okay, what am I doing? Sitcom. It's like, oh my God, I'm doing drama with laughs. Please, really? What kind of a break that? But it did mean I got to go to Television Centre, because LE, darlings, was at Television Centre, whereas drama was down on Shepherd's Bush Green. So I loved being at Television Centre, and I loved being in sitcom world. I just felt I found my home, because it was everything that I knew, being drama. So all the elements were there. But what I loved about it was that you didn't shuffle it out of order. When you go on location, that's a different bag. You do what you need to do. That's fine. But you're putting together a show for an audience that's coming in at 7:00, and they are all full of expectation. They're going to be watching a show, and by 10:00, it's in the bag. You've done it. And it's all those elements of drama. You've done it sequentially. You've had laughs along the way. And for me, I just love come 10:00, heading to that bar when I've finished making all my notes and I'm happy with my script and all the notes for the editor, all ready to go, up to the bar at Television Centre, meeting up with the artists and the crew, and just having a drink and celebrating. And then you'd have a day off, and then you'd be back at rehearsal room, starting again with a read through, ready for the next episode. And I love that. That was very different from drama and different from Doctor Who. So I ended up staying there. I actually applied because I'd been on a panel where you could literally get sent to any department that needed a PA. So it could have been religion, it could have been children's, it could have been OBs, it could have been events, it could have been anything. And as I say, I wanted variety. I ended up in sitcom world, but I loved it so much. I thought, please don't send me anywhere I don't want to go. I'm happy here. So I became a permanent member of the comedy, Ellie comedy. So that's how I ended up there for several years before I left and went freelance.
But an early sitcom would have been Heidi High. So how was it coming into a very established team, but also working with Croft and Perry, who I understand were very particular about some of the crew?
Yes, but Bernadette Darnell had been working with David Croft and Jimmy Perry on all the other Heidi Highs. And interestingly, it almost picks up from where we just left off. When I arrived and I was given my first program to do with Roger Race. I think it was called The Front Line. Yeah, I think it was called The Front Line with Roger Race. And I thought I know it's on in front of an audience. I know it's going to be different. So I said, please, who should I go and watch, if that's okay, to see what the PA does, what the nuances are for the PA. And they said, yeah, well, ask Bernie. So, yeah, she was happy for me to go along. And so I actually went along and watched her PAing an early episode, or when I first arrived, not the earliest episode, but an episode of Heidi High. So I sat beside her, just as I'd done at Pebble Mill with the others, watching from the best. Bernie, brilliant PA, absolutely brilliant. And I loved watching her. I loved seeing the whole thing. I loved what was going on. I thought the scripts were so funny. And at the end of it, it was like, hey, there's some music, because whatever they're doing. And they actually have all the cameras are lined up. It's all scripted, where all the artists are standing. So they do their wave at the end. And it's all cut to the beat. So she actually did some music cutting, calling, 1 of 2, 2 of 2, 3 of 2, 3, 4, shot 34 next, whatever. Well, it wouldn't have been, it'd been about 300 or something by the time you got to the end. So, and it's like, great, she gets to do some of that. Well, it wasn't in most, it was only in Heidi High that happened. And so I knew what I was coming into when I ended up picking up the penultimate episode. And that was because Bernie had opted to go somewhere else. She'd actually was looking to do something different. So there was a free PA seat. And it worked out with my schedule. So that's how I stepped into Bernie's shoes. So yeah, big shoes to fill. And they were lovely. The nice thing also about being part of the comedy department then was that every time you started a new show, you'd have new crews and you'd all be overlapping, and you'd go and have lunch with a friend and they'd say, oh, hi, now meet this person who's the AFM of that. So by the time you go into a new show, there's going to be somebody that you know, if not quite a few that you know. If not, you're moving with them into another setup. So, after that, for initial being the newbie on something, chances are there's at least one person that you know when you go into a new setup. So there was Heidi High, so we had Robin Carr, Roy Gould, Martin Dennis, because I did the last two, and Mike Stevens did the last series. David was the director on the penultimate series, Mike Stevens was wonderful too. He did the British Empire. He went on to direct the British Empire, or I don't know which way around he did it. So it was wonderful. It was great. They were very welcoming. Lots of filming, lots of the ballroom scenes, lots of music to be sorted. So that was, a whole day for me was spent extrapolating all the different elements of music that you couldn't. The thing about it was, if anything got missed out, they'd all look to you. And it was quite a big thing with the music, because before the first day's filming was when they would get their orchestra into the ball. I think I'm right in saying this. I think they actually brought the orchestra together into the ballroom. I'd already been liaising so that, all the list of all the music that was going to be needed was already then arranged. And it was then a whole series of them being recorded so that they could then be flown in, played in at the relevant time when we were then further down, actually shooting those scenes. So yeah, nerve-wracking times like that, as I say, like making sure you've picked out any music and nothing's got left. It could just be a chance sentence, and it's like, make sure that goes down, because you couldn't afford you can't get the orchestra back twice, when they have to record it. So there were elements of your job that, you did feel the weight of responsibility of certain things, and in Highly High, the music was one of those for me, making sure that was right. And an interesting time on location, I think there was I say about the breakdown, and how I would type out all the names. I don't think these characters had anything to say in a goodbye scene, so I hadn't typed them in. So they weren't there, but apparently they were supposed to be there. But because everybody went off my Bible, so it was like, and they're not just up at the hotel. No, they're actually at home. So it was like, they just can't be there. So there were two artists that are in one scene. It, as I say, it didn't make any difference to the script, but actually, ideally, they would have been in the background. So, that just shows the importance of that little Bible. So, yeah. But I just loved the episodes. They made me laugh so much. I remember when we were filming, because we were doing it in Dovercourt. I think it's a new estate now. It's no longer a holiday camp. We were filming at the end of the season, so the leaves were starting to change and come down, and they'd have the sweepers. They'd be trying to blow the leaves out the way, so you couldn't see that there were some of the autumn leaves were falling. And the girls wearing their yellow coats and everything, that they had sort of these really, really thick tights, but they looked like they had bare legs and things. So yeah, just lots of little bits and pieces. Oh, and interestingly, the very, very last series, and it was almost like the last day of the last series, Felix Burness was going, why do you have to stop? Why can't we have another series? Why are you stopping? Why this? And that was the night of the hurricane. The famous hurricane that swept the country, when Mr. Fish said, no, it'd be fine on the weather forecast. And then trees came down. Well, that was the year I was actually staying in one of the chalets. The year before, I'd been up at the main hotel. I was staying in one of the chalets, and it was so windy. I just couldn't sleep. I was listening to Chris Rea on my Walkman, trying to block out the noise. And then there was a bang on the door saying, you've got to get out. Everyone is meeting up in the ballroom. This is, and it was like, oh, really? What? It was like, I don't know what o'clock it was. It was ridiculous. So I was like, right, okay. So, oh, right, okay. Well, I better get out. So I started to get myself ready. And I mean, I don't, do anything without having a bit of, eyeshadow on and a bit of lipstick or whatever. And there was another knock on the door. You're not out there yet? So, yes, I'm coming. And he said, have you seen? And they opened the door. The next door had a tree right the way through it. It was like, oh dear. So I turned up at in the ballroom cafe area where everyone would rally around, and there was a tree through the generator. It was absolute carnage. And my trainee at the time was Judith Bantock, and she said, "Look at you, turn it up like that." She said, "I've got my pajamas on underneath this." So, oh dear, lucky for me, somebody was smiling down on me. I was kept safe. Oh dear. And Phoenix Boness, of course, was going, "You see what happens when you say there's no more hidey high." But one way or another, we managed to shoot the last little bits that we needed to do that day by various means. As I say, generators were written off and all sorts, but pulled it together. Yeah, so happy memories. Hidey high, lots of laughter, and because everyone knew their places, there were set places where they all stood if they were in the main office. That lots of it just fell together, and especially working with David Croft, laid back, chilled. It was like, can I have the camera script by? Oh, when do you need it by? Oh, okay. And he just sort of sit at his desk. And he'd have done his notes. I'm not saying he hasn't done his notes, and he's got it all in his head anyway when he's been at rehearsals with them. And he'd just sit there quietly. And it just seemed to me like a quarter of an hour later, he just handed me the whole thing, all done, because he knew where they all had to be, and it was just a joy. And I remember I had the camera script and the camera cards ready, and I was pretty much leaving at a normal time, not into the night. And I just remember thinking, I don't want this to end. I could do this for the rest of my life. I would be so happy. Because it was like, I can actually be in this fabulous show, but do it like it's just an ordinary day job. Fit it in like an ordinary day job and have a life outside with my little one at home. So yeah, it was a shame that went. But I've got to tell you that there was a transition going on in those years of that I did the Hidey High. They were just bringing in computers, so it's like not only are you working against trying to get scripts out to everybody who's give me the script. I'm typing it. It was that actually now you're going to try and type it on a computer. We had no training. It's not, we hadn't gone to school with these things. They just arrived. I was a grown woman. Now I had to learn about computers, and I've got deadlines. Oh, what? But they were quite basic. But anyway, I got some training in it. But so that was a transition that I do remember that started to happen at that time. But the wonderful thing was having these scripts, how they arrived, was on a little cassette of some kind that you played, and you put your audio pieces in, and it was Jimmy and David themselves. They were reading. They must have had bits of paper or whatever that they were reading from their version of their scripts, and they were reading the characters' parts. Oh, it's just a joy. And they kind of knew that they were special because there was no way, and Bernie said to me, they won't let you keep them. They want those tapes back. So then nobody else got to hear them. So I felt privileged that I actually had the experience of hearing Jimmy Perry and David Croft speaking the words and the voices in the characters. They would do it in their characterful way. So that was a wonderful memory too.
Well, I think on the note of those fantastic comedy greats, I guess a lovely note to end on. So I'd just like to say thank you very much for your time, Valerie. It's been fantastic to talk about only a very small part of your work, but you clearly enjoyed every minute of it.
I did, yes. It was fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for asking me.